names. I just got hundreds of names, so I tend to forget names.
No big deal.
Fred's the businessman that was doing the breakfast taco outreach in Austin. He was in that Mission Frontiers issue that was from business as usual.
To tacos is unusual.
So they were, I mean, they're getting into a lot of homes, and so they brought Clint out as kind of an expert on the group formation, long-term discipleship piece. And so Clint's real fruitful. I mean, he's got a lot of wisdom on this stuff. These rednecks like to posture themselves, as like this redneck persona, but then like you look at their fruit and it's like, okay, you guys like to play the redneck card, but they can kill it when it comes to ministry.
Brilliance.
That's right.
Right. It's something about rednecks, man. They either really like us or they're just scared of us, so they have no choice.
So we've got this band of brothers, Steve, in the U.S. of guys that we met at. It's really through Jeff. I mean, most of what's going on in our network is Jeff's downstream. Or people that Jeff has met with, and so we meet once a month on this to just encourage each other. And you had told me about the importance of communities of practice, and that's kind of what we've cultivated here. We're just a group of friends that are doing ministry and learning from each other and iron on iron, and just desperate to have people speak into what's going on, and we say we're continually failing forward, and
that's right. So, which is different than failing and giving up.
That's right.
Well, I'm a failure. I guess I'll just quit now.
That's right.
It happens. It does. And so, communities of practice, Clint. I first tasted communities of practice with Steve Addison and their group, Move Australia, and we did some Iron on Iron, 2009, I think was our first meeting, and we kind of had an annual get-together, brought all the practitioners from around Asia together, and then I looked at the Buddhist world and said, gee, we're kind of thin over here. There's different people I know, because I travel around, who are trying to launch movement, trying to even see someone come to faith, which is tough in the Buddhist world.
Right.
Let's bring together community practice there. So we started one in Phnom Penh in Cambodia. And I'd like to start another one in Thailand. But that'll have to wait till we get back there.
Right.
And these guys meet every 2 weeks. Obviously, our group from Move Australia, we don't meet every 2 weeks because people are scattered all over the world. But and none of us are as smart as Troy in terms of Google Hangouts. And I mean, we just like bleh. I mean, it never happened,
Yeah, I understand that. I got my first one coming up with some guys back in North Carolina, July 7th. I don't know if you saw that. As technologically retarded as I am, though, Troy, I might have to get you to come over and get everybody in the group for me.
I'll help you, man. I'll hold your hand.
But,
I'll maul you on Google Hangout, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
you need to
the
check
problem,
it out. Go ahead.
Troy, is that you modeled and ran on me. we didn't get any of the other steps. You walked me through the first one, and I said, all right, I'm going to try and do a Google Hangout. It just messed up. I've never done it since. I need some assisting now. So there's model and leave, or model and abandon, which happens a lot in ministry, and we don't want that. Okay. I showed you guys what to do. Now just do it, right? No, those are called sermons. Those are called, read this lesson and now you're on your own.
Yeah.
Okay, that's model and abandon. That is not equip. Sorry.
I'm sorry I abandoned you.
Yeah, so I need a little assistance, Troy. While we're still in the same area, you got to assist me as I do one, and
I
then
will. I think it's
you can
critical.
watch.
The one of the most fruitful catalysts in the U.S. is Chuck Wood.
Okay.
He's the former NAV leader in San Antonio who has Lou Gehrig's disease. And
I didn't know he had that. I heard a podcast of him,
yep.
which was really compelling. I
He
didn't
has,
know he had Lou Gehrig's.
He has Lou Gehrig's. And yeah, so you heard his podcast on movement.net?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, most of his training is online. He does it online, and the groups that he's training are all happening live in person where they're at. But he's seeing lots of multiple streams of. I mean, there's one guy in D.C., Jeff McDaniel, who's at 6th generation, and he just moved to Africa as an ambassador, and is already. I mean, he's already got into some homes. Did you see that, Clint, online? Jeff getting into those villages, already getting into some homes.
I didn't see that. I don't think.
The beast.
No, I didn't miss that. I need to get down and spend some time with Chuck, man. He's been on me about coming down there, but I've been so busy I hadn't really had a time. But I want to do that shortly.
Yeah. He's going to be in Austin.
Yeah, he's going to be here for the mid-level, July. Yeah.
And Chuck has some on Tuesday nights. He's got online trainings that you can either watch via webcast or jump on. I'm sure if he saw you were there, he'd pull you on. But you can watch how he leads his online. He's very intuitive. He's a sharp guy.
No, yeah, I know that. I did watch one of his old Hangouts or something. I think you were in it. I just got on there and watched it, just a little bit of it. And
it was so funny. I just wanted to see it, and he saw I was on there and pulled me in.
Yeah, I seen you in there. I didn't recognize many of the other faces, but I saw you over there. The big beard.
Yeah.
So where can you find the old archives of his stuff?
His website. Go ahead.
You go ahead. You know more than I do.
Their network is called Jesus Up and Out, and it's www.juio.net.
Jesus Up and Out, huh?
Yeah.
So you just go to his website, and he's got some stuff there.
Yeah, and he posts on Facebook too.
So, like, I could friend him on Facebook. Is that how it works in this world?
Yeah, he's on there. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a Facebooker.
Huh. Well, you got to understand, Clint. I've lived in the jungle, so I'm just like coming out here. Booger Hollow seemed like civilization to me.
I heard that. Yeah, I'm new to all this technology, really. I've been on Facebook for a while, but I just recently started a Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and all this other. Well, it's happening now. I'm trying to get as many avenues as I can to let people know what's going on. What God's doing here in Austin. So anything I can do, I'm trying to utilize that. So yeah, I'm just learning. I'm old, man. All this technology stuff's new to me. Troy's got an advantage on me. I don't know how he learned all this stuff. James Harvey, I guess, taught him.
No. Well, that's just from being a youth pastor. You've got to be up on it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And when we were in Japan, I didn't use technology as much until we went overseas and needed to communicate with people. Right. And that's where I really started utilizing Facebook and Google Hangout and stuff like that because I was forced to.
Yeah.
And it can also be a distraction. I mean, I know that the key is just, above all else, remain a doer.
Right. Well, I'm excited about the Google Hangout thing. I'm hoping that, like I say, the one I'm going to try to do with these guys is back in North Carolina, trying to kind of get spur them on a little bit, man. They've kind of fizzled out a little bit since I left and came here. I mean, not that it has anything to do with me, but you know what I'm saying. Just trying to do something to get them motivated a little more. So hopefully it'll help.
Yeah. Clint, why don't you can you give us a snapshot of what you see happening in Austin and even in North Carolina, just to kind of bring Steve up to speed?
Yeah. Well, you know, since coming to Austin, Steve, I fell in there with Fred, and we done right when I first came, we done a lot of about 4 2-day trainings, just the Friday 3 hours, Saturday, you know, 5 or 6 hours.
Okay.
And out of that, he was funneling me people, you know, who were going to be potential practitioners who were interested in going to the next step, you know. And so we started doing the House of Peace searches, you know, with the breakfast tacos and Round Rock donuts, and just going out and knocking on some doors and letting people know we care about them and asking them the miracle question.
Okay.
And so we hit about 6 apartment complexes here, right within, you know, Rock's chunk from where I live. One of the apartment complexes is the one I live in. So, and then, you know, at least 2 weeks later, we try to go back and take those practitioners that were funneled from the trainings and going back and knocking on the doors and just trying to tell them the first story of hope, which is the sinful woman story, and then coupled with our story, you know, our personal testimony, and then just calling them to a decision. You know, from that point, looking for a green light or a yellow light, you know, either somebody comes to Christ right there, or maybe they're not quite ready, but they're open, you know, they have some spiritual hunger, they're open to come, you know, let us come back and hear some more stories. So through that, up to this point, I've got about 35 or 40, you know, pretty active practitioners that are coming along 3 days a week. Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, we're going out and doing the follow-ups, and actually got probably about 12 groups going now, pretty consistently. I got one house church that is kind of springing up. We got about, the majority of the groups are in this one apartment complex. This one guy came to Christ, and so we started meeting with him on Sunday mornings, and some of those other people from that apartment complex are starting to come join us on Sunday. So I'm hoping that's eventually going to be a definite, you know, a big deal there, where, you know, hopefully the whole apartment complex comes to faith. But so that's what's going on. And like I say, I've started with my practitioners. I've started doing we started with a monthly gathering, where we're just, you know, once a month coming together and just, you know, kind of fellowshipping, breaking bread, and just modeling the process. You know, really trying to push them to get more comfortable sharing their story and Jesus' story. And so what I'm doing, we had our second one of those this past month, and so the next month, I'll pass the buck to them, and they'll start leading. I'm just going to sit back and be a part of the group and let them lead the group, and just have a different person lead the group each time. And then starting this Saturday, I'm doing a weekly rollout, which is we're going to flip flop Fridays and Saturdays. In other words, every other Friday, every other Saturday, we'll come together. Same deal, you know, just kind of fellowship, break some bread and fellowship a little bit, and then just model the 3/3 process. And what I'm going to use in that setting is Jeff Sundale's weekly rollout that he uses. You know, the week 1, do the, you know, my story and oikos. You know, week 2, review my story and just kind of really. But how I'm going to use that, man, is I'm just going to hammer them with practice and sharing their story. I mean, we're going to have them share it 10 times. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just because I'm really starting to see that, man, if people are not comfortable sharing their story and the gospel, they're probably not going to do a whole lot with this. And so I'm just really trying to hammer that and trying to get everybody just really comfortable sharing their faith, and then hopes that'll push them on to, you know, hey, I can learn this story, you know, this first story of hope or second story, you know, whatever. So it seems to be, you know, that they really are liking the community part of that. You know, they're liking coming together with other believers and fellowshipping, sure. And of course everybody loves to eat, you know. And so
that's easy.
Yeah, right. So it's going well so far. This will be the first week that we've actually done the weekly. We've had 2 monthlies, and you know, of course July is coming up, so we'll have another one. I think July 11th is our next monthly, and people are being real willing to open up their homes to let us come and and do that. You know, the practitioners are opening up their homes and letting us come over and everybody come together there, and so it's just going real well. I'm tickled with the way that's going.
Absolutely. Super.
Since I've started doing that, it's really upped my attendance for the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday deal. Like I was having 3 to 4 people each night, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, to go out and do the follow-ups. Now I'm having 10 or 12 every night.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah, so something about that, you know, bringing them together in that community has really spurred them on to want to do more. So,
could you clarify what you mean by the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday follow-up?
Tuesday, Wednesdays, Thursdays is when we're actually like going back and following up on the House of Peace searches. In other words, we've done the House of Peace search.
When are you doing those?
The House of Peace searches are on Saturdays,
Okay.
or Sundays. We've done a couple on Sundays, you know, during.
So you've got weekly House of Peace searches going on.
No weekly House of Peace searches. We're doing those periodically, probably maybe like monthly, or maybe probably every other month would be more accurate. You know, so we just did one about 3 weeks ago, and we're starting to do follow-ups on it now. And so we've got a couple groups have already, you know, come out of that, but I still got several more to do. So one thing that I have started doing is I'm thinking that the first follow-up, you know, we do the House of Peace search on Saturday or Sunday. So I'm thinking that the first follow-up needs to be also on that Saturday, because, you know, they were there. They saw the faces. It's a familiar face. I'm trying to get it to where the same people are going back and doing the follow-up on a Saturday again. Just you know what I'm saying? Just so they're seeing a familiar face. We know they're going to be home, or, you know, more than likely they're going to be home because they were home.
You give people a feel of responsibility. This is your turf.
Right.
You went 10 doors.
Right.
Go back again to those 10.
Right. And then at that point,
can you describe a little bit how you've gone from starting a group to being church? You said you had one church springing up. What were the steps? What happened to move from group to church?
Well, the biggest thing for me is just the person being obedient and following through with baptism. And once that person follows through with baptism, we do the Lord's Supper together. You know, that they realize that this is more than just, you know, a couple, 3 or 4 guys getting together and doing a Bible study. This is real. This is church. This is it doesn't have to be inside the 4 walls of a building with a steeple on it. We can be baptized right here. We can do the Lord's Supper right here. You know, so and now, like I said, some of the other people in that complex that have came to Christ or are already followers have begun to come in and be a part of that. So I'm real excited about that. Now, we haven't got to the giving part yet, but that's something that definitely I'm going to try to cover that at some point. You know, trying to spur them on to, hey, this is church. We can give tithes, offerings, whatever, and begin to use that money to open up more houses of peace. You know, so.
Okay. So the biggest step was doing the sacraments together. Someone comes to faith. We do the sacraments together. Now our group kind of steps up in its seriousness. It steps up in its consecration as a group.
Yep. I think there's something about that, just obedience to the commands of Christ, that kind of start to bring people together as a community. I mean, you know, that's my opinion, but I think, you know, it seems like that's how it's working. But,
so the group that did obey, did baptism. How is that? When you go to that meeting, how is it different? In what ways is it different from just a Discovery Bible study that's maybe happening in another place? What do you notice?
I think you're seeing a little more obedience there. You know, I'm seeing Kevin and Danny and these guys that are in that group. I'm seeing them actually. They are going out and sharing these stories. They're sharing their faith. They're taking it seriously. That this is something that they're supposed to be doing. It's not just a holy huddle where we're coming together to talk about God's word. This is we're supposed to be being obedient in this, and so I guess that you know the level of obedience, I guess, is probably the biggest thing there.
Okay.
Which is what we're after in all of them, but at the same time,
that's right.
Some of these others are kind of lagging behind. So you know, but this particular group is definitely, you know, I can see a lot of fruit coming there.
Well, one area I've been working on, struggling with, is what practical steps can you take as a practitioner to encourage obedience? I'm just wondering if you could reflect on what do you do? Okay, you're the T for T group leader, or I'm a practitioner out in the street looking for persons of peace. I've got a few other practitioners along with me. In different settings like that, what steps do you take to encourage or even insist on obedience?
That's a good question. Man, to be honest with you, dude, I think God has really, and it's a God thing for sure, because He's really just blessed me with giving me a sweet spot in folks' homes. You know what I'm saying? I've always been kind of a real relational type person, and there's just something, I don't know, man. It's a gift, I guess He's given me. Um, because with Kevin, man, it was really amazing, because all we were doing was just doing the stories, man, just going to the Word of God, telling the story, reading the story, and then he got it. You know what I'm saying? He's like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be. Like for example, when I did the call with him, the 2 Corinthians 5:17 through 21 with Kevin, I didn't have to explain it to him. He said, man, I'm his ambassador. I'm supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
God wants to use me to reach my friends and my family, and he got that. And then when we did prayer, it was like we did the Lord, teach us how to pray, and then we went through the Lord's prayer, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, and he realized on his own, without me sharing it with him, that this is how we're supposed to pray. I'm not just supposed to say, okay, God, give me this and this and this. I'm supposed to worship Him, and I'm supposed to surrender to Him, and then ask Him. Mm-hmm. He knows what I need, but He wants me to ask. But first, He wants me to worship and surrender. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, man. All I can do is just give glory to God that He's using the power of His Word to open people's hearts.
Are there other things maybe that you're doing? Are they looking at you and saying, okay, I read it in the Word, I'm looking at Clint, and I go, okay, I get it. Is that part of it?
Well, maybe God's given me a passion for this, man. You know what I'm saying? It's not really hard when I'm in front of people for people to see that I'm passionate about it. You know what I'm saying? I'm very emotional.
That's good. That helps.
I get emotional very easily, and so I guess maybe God's just blessed me with that passion that people can see, and when they see that, it kind of rubs off on them a little bit. I guess I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's a piece of it that births obedience. One thing I'm learning is you need to intentionally bring a community of doers together.
Right.
Okay, so if you've got a T for T group and there's 10 people there and one's kind of making some attempts to obey and 9 are doing nothing, it's a caustic environment. It undermines even the one who's working at it.
Yeah.
And practically, how you work it out is different, but getting people together in a community of doers really sparks obedience and helps us all along. If I'm all alone in obeying Jesus, I get tired out way quicker. If I'm out with a dozen people every week, I could go forever. And so we've got to help those who want to be plugged into a community. And so group discipleship trumps individual discipleship every time. And that seems to be a real key in encouraging obedience.
Well, let me say this. I think one thing that I may do that some people may not do, I don't know for sure, but like I said before, I'm really kind of a relational kind of guy. And one of the ways that I've reached out to Kevin is besides just on the nights or the days we do the church or whatever, he and I I'm trying to hang out with Kevin on a more personal level as well. You know what I'm saying? Like we've been watched a movie a couple times. We went and ate some lunch. You know what I'm saying? Just really pouring into him as a friend. More. So in other words, he don't see me just as that guy who's going to come by and do a Bible study on Sunday. He sees me as more of a person who really cares about him and is interested in his life. So I think that relational level, I think, really has to go up if you want to see people begin to be obedient. It can't be just a ABC. This is what we're going to do.
That's right.
It has to be literally pouring into them your life. So I guess if anything, that might be something that I could offer as And of course, time limits a lot of that. But I mean, just so happens that I do have a lot of time on my hands. Kevin's a single guy. I'm a single guy, so there's a little time for stuff like that. But so yeah, that would be one thing I'd say probably has helped there.
That's a good point. How about you, Troy? What are you seeing that helps encourage obedience?
In the context we're in, it's the vision cast.
Okay.
I think
give me an example, or how do you see that working itself out?
I'd say with Floyd and Annie, our urban African American House of Peace, it's and whenever they have people come in, is reiterating that they're the ones God wants to use to reach their community, and to the point where they say it, that spurred on obedience, I think, more than anything.
Okay.
Because they've got a million excuses, or not excuses, they have a million reasons why people won't listen to them or won't receive it. And I think the vision cast, the perpetual vision cast, is what really produced obedience in them, to the point where, in response to the scripture, that's what really prompted obedience, was based on the Bible lesson. But we trained them, and when we started to really see obedience was the fruit of the vision cast. Annie was prayer walking on her own, and and had shared with her family members, and Floyd's obedience statement the last time we met was to go share with the drug. He went from just his family to, okay, I want to go after the drug dealers, and I think just confirmed in him.
Yeah.
The same with the Port St. Lucie group. I think it's easy to, in the trainings, to kind of, they're gospeling and they're out sharing the gospel, but I think then I learned this from Jeff Sundell, is just when you start to get excited about what you're doing, you almost have to break people's contentment a little bit to expand the vision a little more. You can't just start with, we're reaching Florida, but you can start with, all right, go share, we're gospeling. And then they get excited about gospeling or seeing some people come to faith, and that's when it can slow down, because then they're content with that. And it's like, okay, no, we got to praise the Lord for what you're seeing, but how about this? What about the ones who aren't hearing? Bringing them back to the vision of we're wanting to reach lostness. Okay. We're not just celebrating fruit that we're seeing. Like, our vision is that more people will hear the gospel this week, and then that spurred them on to then want to. And then we did the House of Peace lesson, and so they went from just sharing with individuals to now going after homes. So I think that continual vision cast, at least in our context, I see is really important.
Okay, super. Yeah, there's 7 pieces in the T for T process. 4 of them are geared at obedience steps, and vision cast is one of them. So that's good. That's a good piece. He saw his mission field out of that and did something about it. And I like what you're saying here, Troy, that you can't just say, hey, we're going to reach the 96%, or you just have this grandiose thing and people can't get their head around it. It's too abstract, it's too big or presumptuous. But to just say, hey, who is your oikos? Who's the top 5 on your most wanted list that you could actually sit down with and talk to this week? And I've got my top 5, and I come to this call with kind of a heavy heart today, because one of the guys on my list has never been responsive. We're supposed to go look for the responsive person of peace, but there's those occasional people. It's just like, I want to see this person saved. And there was one guy named Cal. Cal was a professional weightlifter and he trained my boys in weightlifting and was a key part of the school where our boys were. And he's known a number of Christians. He's looked at things, but he's very much Buddhist and very secular in his thinking. And for the last 9 months, I've gone to him repeatedly saying, are you interested in reconsidering the Jesus that you've rejected? Can I tell you a Bible story? I did my testimony in a Bible story with him one time. He's a tough guy to get a hold of, but I would spend hours to intercept him, and then, I got 10 minutes, and I'd tell him a little story. And he just got really belligerent. Well, the news came in yesterday that he died of congestive heart failure 2 days ago. And he's having a Buddhist funeral. And it just felt so helpless. It was like, I wish somehow I was better at this, or I wish that, I could stir up the hunger that obviously wasn't there. He was not spiritually seeking, and at some level he was actually mocking. But he's tough. His son is a professional weightlifter. He's 16. He's 17. He's one of my son's best friends. He's into everything, man. He's into drugs. He's into smoking. He's a Thai boxer. Muay Thai. I don't know if you've seen kickboxing, Thai kickboxing. He's a kickboxer. He's been in three matches. He had a total knockout within 2 minutes. He knocked out every guy. You don't want to mess with this kid. He set a world's record for 15-year-olds in weightlifting. You don't want to mess with him. But he's his son. I've just had a burden for him. And, I wanted to get their family together, and we never got to group, We gospeled a bit here and there, but never got to group. And I don't know. It just feels helpless sometimes when people don't respond.
Yeah.
So that's a heavy, and it's about the gap. I guess that's what triggered that thought, Troy, when you said, you put the gap in front of people. You put in front of them what we haven't done. Okay, most of the church is bragging about what we have done. We've started X number of groups. We've shared X hundreds of times with this many people, and here, look at what we've done. And you kind of get the feeling like, well, Jiminy, in 5 more minutes, the whole world's going to be touched here. But in fact, a lot of the world is not being touched at all. And the more you have the vision for what's not, the more you're pushed on.
Yeah. I learned that from Jeff and Jared. I think that they talked about an update where they saw 20,000 and they were of new believers, and they were celebrating it, but then they brought out the death rate. They said, this is over in Southeast Asia, and they said, we haven't even put a dent in the death rate. Let's celebrate what God's doing, but man, let's not celebrate too early. We need to keep moving. We want to ask God for more, and that's
So that's a heavy heart. I've got the opposite story as well. One of our church planting teams went to Vietnam and led a family to faith. Classic person of peace. They just got on their motorbikes. Get ready, Troy. You're going to do it, man. They got on the motorbikes, just going out to this district in northwest part of Vietnam, and they knew from the census that there were Thai Lu villages up there. And they just stopped at a fork in the road. One of the guys I coach, he said to the team, there were 4 ladies along, like national. They're from a near culture group. They're not Thai Lu, but a very closely related people group, and they said, look, why don't you gals go up to this house here, there's some ladies kind of working in the yard, and just start prayer walking and seeing who can listen to the gospel. And then the guys went on their motorbikes, went to 2 more villages, and they got back to the first house about 1 in the afternoon, maybe 3.5, 4 hours of time later, and this whole family's come to faith, and they're baptized. And the male head of the household, explained that 20 years ago, someone had come and told them the creation story and the fall of man, and that people were wicked and sinful. And they got that, and they said, okay, we know there's a creator God, and we're really awful. And so they kind of syncretized that idea with their ancestor worship and what they were doing. And they were trying to please creator God by their own effort, which is all they could think to do.
Mm.
And so when they came along and they told the creation story first up, they said, oh, we know that story, and there's a whole bunch of us here in these two villages that are seeking to please the creator God by our own effort. And they said, well, let me tell you the rest of the story. So I did it C to C, and these guys come to faith. Well, the next 2 days, the male head of households phoning our prayer walking team saying, okay, I'm over here with my drinking buddies, and they got the story, and they're ready to believe. And 4 hours later, he says, oh, I'm down in such and such a village with my cousins and they got the story. They're going to follow Jesus now. And by the way, when are you guys coming back? Well, the thing is, if they show their face back there, they're going to be having a long, friendly conversation with the local police. In fact, it was absolute miraculous that they went for 5 days on this person of peace search, sharing the gospel everywhere, and never had an altercation with the police. And so for the last 6 weeks, we've been racking our brains. How are we going to do follow-up? And so plan A is we've contacted Hmong Christians who live in the area to go follow up. And plan B is to bring this family to a neutral location for a couple of days of intensive training where they can really learn the stories and kind of clarify. But that is the first thing in the Thyla people group to come to faith. So we're rejoicing at that. So, I come to this call with a heavy heart, having lost a friend to congestive heart failure and receiving his eternal due. Not a happy picture. And then this story of finding a person of peace, seeing the first beginning in a totally unreached group. That is, by everyone's count in Vietnam, the final ethnic group in the country of Vietnam that had no believers. And now at least there's this family, and they're gospeling. I'm sure that they've suffered some persecution, because there's no way this guy is going to be talking about Jesus up there for very long without a visit from the local authorities. So, that's the cool stuff I'm working on. But then there's the gap, There's this heaviness. So many people. What's going to happen with them?
Yeah, I heard a man speak this morning. He's a leader in Guatemala, and he's a native Guatemalan who had a vision to reach his community through a school, and he's done it. They're really doing it. They have a vision now to reach 1,000 families. And one of the things that really struck me was he said that he's a farmer, and he had this land that he inherited from his family.
Yeah.
And as he was planting individual heads of, planting the lettuce, there's thousands of heads of lettuce in this field. He said he began to picture each child in that community, and he just became overwhelmed in his heart. And it just was impressed upon me that, like what we'd said earlier, 96% unchurched, but if you don't have faces, if you don't have, individuals or families or neighborhoods or actual people, I keep hearing you say, Steve, my heart is heavy. My heart is heavy. If we don't personalize this and don't see these as souls, as people, as God, as Ying constantly talks about Heavenly Father's heart, it's just easy to see it as work instead of asking the Lord to give us a real heart for these specific people. And that really struck me this morning. I was like, wow, Pastor Rudy, these kids were so on his heart that as he's planting lettuce heads, he's picturing individual kids, in that community. And,
Right. Yeah, he's personalizing it. And
yeah.
So I like the analogy. I like the heart of that analogy. Let's put it that way. It's not a multiplication picture, but it's a heart for those people, and that's you got to have that.
That's right.
And then you can get the boat moving. Then things start to move out.
That's good.
Carter and Zach should be joining us here for our final 30 minutes soon.
That you communicated with them?
Yeah, Carter had his time off. He did Central instead of Eastern time. And Zach thought it was canceled. He didn't get the follow-up text. So it's my fault. I didn't realize. I sent the invite to Steve, but I didn't realize he was joining us for this.
I got you.
And so
I messed you up again. I wrecked your whole day again, Troy.
No, I'm glad. I mean, it's worth it to, for me, it's the day after. I was ambitious to schedule this the day after getting back from Tokyo, and so that's my fault. I didn't communicate. We schedule these a month out, but then you've got to. For me, when I put something in the calendar, it's just there, but I don't think everybody uses calendars, so I gotta, follow up and remind people that we're meeting again. So, but for me, this is gold. Getting to hear just from you two guys has been worth it.
Well, I got a prayer concern to share with you guys. Okay. It's a praise God deal, but it's also a huge step, man. When I came to Austin, my whole in my mind, I was going, okay, God, I'll go to Austin for a year and serve, and then I'll go back to North Carolina and implement what I learned and continue doing what I was doing before. But I'm not sure that's what God's got in mind for me, man. Well, the first thing that happened was James Harvey. He texted me 2 weeks ago and asked me said he felt like would I be willing once I finished in Texas to come to Nashville and co-labor with them for a year. And said he wouldn't be able to offer me any pay, but if I had my support raised. So my initial thought on that was, if you guys can give me a place to stay and give me a little more flexibility than what I have here in Texas, and I have at least 70% of my support raised by that time, then I would say yes. It was just my initial thought. Well, then,
of course, you got to include the request to South Florida in there too. You got to pray through those two options.
Yeah, well, okay. There's a third option. 4 days ago now, I get a message on Facebook from a guy named John Mark Hanson.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I was going to ask you about that.
Well, he has let me know that there's a paid position for a T4T Catalyst church planner in the area of Lincoln/Omaha, Nebraska.
Yep.
And he hadn't offered me the job, but pretty much I talked to him on the phone yesterday, and he pretty much said his words before he hung up was, the more I talk to you, the more I think you're going to be a perfect fit for this position. So I sent him a resume, and so I guess I just ask you guys to pray that God would give me very clear direction here, because that's a big step. That's still a long way from home, and